police around this bitch if you're me. Holy shit.
You're all right, man. It's just a bad day.
Really? Give me my keys back then. Someone get me those fucking keys from that fuck.
What the hell did we just watch, Mitch?
We watched some poor bastard get his car broken into, and then we saw the fallout of it. And there were a bunch of people hanging out and just kind of lingering who were, I don't know, that's interesting that they didn't really, maybe they were trying to help him, but they didn't look like it. They were pretty casual about it, as if, it's just another day in Chaz.
Yeah, like when did his car get smashed up?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if he needs his windshield replaced and, keys replaced and everything, he can either leave Chaz and go out and get those supplies, because I'm guessing if they have the exits blocked off, he can't get towed or anything,
right,
to be able to get everything fixed. They would have to come in, like whoever's fixing it, and do it.
Do they have a town mechanic? Is there a dealership, or how does that work?
Yeah, dealership. Yeah, no. But if nobody can get in with a vehicle, or nobody wants to get in because of the perceived violence, then he's not going to get fixed. And when he starts crying, then that guy just says, "Hey, it's just a bad day,"
Yeah, it's just a bad day. Yeah, I would be pissed too, though, because if my car was smashed,
so would I.
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
And then you don't even have the keys for it. That's not an easy fix at all.
Yeah. Oh, no. I mean, just to get the keys, if it's with it's just the clicker or whatever, it runs in the range of anywhere from $100 to $220, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
And windshield's going to be what? Maybe $250 to $400, and then whatever else they had stolen.
Yeah, unless you have coverage, but you'd have to bank on having glass coverage.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be expensive. That's for sure.
And it was that was actually a common occurrence to have one's car broken into when I was in college out in Greeley. I had a few friends who had their vehicles broken into, and it was even in parking lot. And I know a few people, obviously, in St. Cloud and Minneapolis, who've had their cars broken into. And I'm just chilling here in Wright County. That sucks, man. Just another reason I'm there.
Yeah, when I was in Coon Rapids, I think that's the only time I've had somebody get into my car.
Okay.
That's it.
Gotcha.
But like you said, it's just, we live out in just quiet old Monticello. There's nothing going on.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, I mean, it's so much nicer having space and being able to park places.
Yeah.
It's like what Logan said about people are going to start spacing out.
Yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Even these people who are center left or fairly progressive and into the social scene and stuff. Well, you got to kind of figure things out. I mean, if you have a vehicle and some of this shit goes down, or you have an increased chance of shit happening to your car, I mean, that's kind of important. Something you would want to factor.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
And we don't know. We don't know if that guy who if he parked in Chaz before the barriers went up, or somehow maybe a few of them went up and then he was able to go to a business or something and then they closed it off. Who knows? But there's nothing that can be done to help him. And it's such a simple fix, you would think, but they're in fucking Chaz.
Yeah. Yep. I don't think this is going to work out the way they want it to. I think it's going to end in disaster.
Yeah. How do you think it's going to end, Carl?
I don't know. I mean, I don't think Trump should go after them, because if he does, if let's say the military goes in and kills them, the Chaz people will be viewed as martyrs to the liberal cause.
Precisely.
I don't think it would be a good idea for Trump to go in there and blow them all away. I think he should just let them do what they do and have it just fail on its own.
Well, that's what makes it tough. What do you do about this situation here?
Yeah. Because regardless of what he does, he's still going to get criticized.
Oh, yeah. Yep. So the federal level, they can't do anything. So these states can just be overrun because Orange Man bad, and if he does anything.
Yeah, that's kind of their go-to response to everything. Orange Man bad.
Yeah, it's been all it is.
Pretty much.
I know.
The situation, I think, obviously, in this scenario, would be on a grander scale, but like when Reagan, advocated for in the early '80s, all throughout his second term, where he advocated for like more military spending to kind of combat the threat of the Soviet Union. Well, I think what a lot of people knew ahead of time, especially people in the Soviet Union, was that it was collapsing on itself. So there was no need for increased defense spending or like maybe these kind of veiled threats to strong arm them or anything. It's kind of the same thing here. I mean, if Trump really wants to bring in like federal troops to shut down a 6-block area of previously in Seattle that is failing epically to the point where they cannot even grow a goddamn garden.
Previously in Seattle.
Yeah, and then it's over. It's just like Carl said, they're going to be viewed as like these martyrs when in reality they're just these morons who made a failed experiment, and like that's it won't be just a failed experiment. It'll be this like noble failed experiment. They're gonna like put up statues of Lenin in Seattle.
Yeah, they'll replace the Confederate statues with Chaz members.
Yeah.
yeah, for sure.
Raz, love a statue of Raz, right?
Yeah.
Who started this? Was it him? Was he the organizer of this thing? Like, who's the person that said, you know what, we're taking over these 6 blocks? Who did
I honestly don't know who started it.
Yeah,
it just seemed to pop up overnight.
Yeah, like I would imagine like something like that needs to be organized to a certain extent.
Yeah.
You need to have people, because not one person was going and putting barricades up and saying, you know what, we're taking this bitch over. Like, maybe that's how it started. Maybe one person said, you know what, help me out with this. And they were just pointing people. They organized the whole thing. They didn't even lift a finger. They just told people, you do this, you do this. Was that Raz? Did he start this whole thing?
It wouldn't take a whole lot of effort to just put up barriers. Because, I mean, if it's just that 6-block whatever area and it's a one-way street and you got some territory area on the sides, I mean, who knows?
Well, they had to have enough people to get the police to stand down.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, that'd be interesting to find out, like, were the police in that area trying to, like, maybe calm things down, or did they get the orders from the mayor just pissed off, and that's when it happened?
Yeah.
And so there's some collusion, kind of like with the collusion that we see with Ted Wheeler and Antifa in Portland. Like, was this just or they just let them take over, and then there's media coverage, and I don't know. I mean, there's just so many questions.
I don't know. Well, in Minneapolis, business owners asked the police for help, but the cops responded and told them that Frey told them. So apparently, Frey told the cops to stand down.
Yeah,
which is ridiculous.
Yeah, and
I know.
That's crazy that Kroll, who I obviously don't like and many others don't like, he had the numbers and he was still calling, for maybe some deputies and sheriffs on like the outskirts to maybe come and help or something, to maybe try and protect from these businesses from looters and rioters.
Right.
But if he went against Frey and said, we are actually going to protect businesses and stores from looters and rioters because they pay taxes, and encompassed within paying taxes is protection, or what you're supposed to do, protection. So if he had actually, I think, if that's true, then disobeyed Frey's orders to stand down and start, tear gassing protesters and people in other areas of Minneapolis, he would still, Frey would still have a lot of momentum politically, and it wouldn't be enough to overcome the bureaucracy or the aftermath of it. You know what I mean? Kroll still wouldn't be a good guy.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. Well, we know they had people, because how many people were protecting that officer's house?
At least 150.
couldn't you have spared a few to go to where there's actually shit going on?
Yeah,
They looked
You
like
would think so.
they had it under control over
Definitely.
there. Meanwhile, yeah, like we're saying, businesses are getting burnt down. No response. They just say, we're going to stand down on this one. And the National Guard is going to have to get called in.
yeah.
It's
I mean,
insane.
it is asinine. And with David Dorn dying at that St. Louis Mall or whatever, I mean, I'm sure there's some questions around it. Like, was he the only one protecting against looters? Because if there are a bunch of, it doesn't matter if it's law enforcement or private security protecting stores from people with Molotov cocktails and stuff, I mean, they're not really going to fuck around and find out.
Yeah.
No.
Security there. So, I mean, like, how are they dispersed? How many would you send per block or place per block business district of Minneapolis? But they definitely had the numbers, and they could. Instead, Lake Street just got torched, and I don't know.
Yeah, and listening
I've
to
seen the pictures.
Oh, you go.
Sorry, I've seen the pictures, and if you didn't know any better, you'd think it was like Mogadishu or Beirut.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. I know the picture you're talking about. That one where it's like gray ash, like kind of falling.
Yeah.
With that car like on the right hand in the foreground. Yeah.
And most of the block is like that, just car after car, just gone.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the fact that it wasn't like that 2 or 3 days afterwards just goes to show you, the volunteerist effort when it came to cleaning up that area.
Yeah.
It looked halfway decent. You could actually see which businesses got torched and which ones didn't. Whereas on the first night, from a lot of those pictures, you would think, the entire neighborhoods just got destroyed.
Yeah.
But, yeah. And then, I don't know.
It is fucked up. Just listening to the scanner, and you would hear that they were gassing crowds, like trying to push crowds back, but apparently they couldn't push crowds back enough. It kind of just seemed like there was this constant wave getting pushed back against them, and they just got overwhelmed. I guess I'm not sure how that works, but you think that you'd have enough gas to get them out of there.
Exactly. I mean, they weren't like those Hong Kong protesters who were walking around with leaf blowers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then putting like parking cones over it and pouring water through the tops of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think that we were using those tactics to fight back. So I'm very confused as to how the police got overwhelmed, because it would have to be extremely organized to get that many people so that the police can't even respond to it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely. And we're never going to find out the truth when it comes to if there was a collusion aspect when it comes to Chaz, because Chaz is a microcosm of, other cities where this could arise. These autonomous, which have they're predicated upon, being free and having liberty and getting away from, the injustices that the police have been committing on a large scale nationwide. But then it just falls into the same thing. It's like these anarcho-communists who, for temporary being, it's anarchy, and people want to associate that with various types of anarchists. And then it falls into this communist state where, like, a guy is giving a crowd to people who are sitting down, saying that if you're white and you enter Chaz, you have to give $10 to a black person.
Yeah, I saw that too.
No way of keeping track, and you're not sure if he's fucking joking. And then at the same time, you're asking yourself, where does this random guy derive his authority to tell white people that they have to give black people $10 if they want to live in an area which isn't private property?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's we're becoming more and more racist as we fight racism, it seems.
Yeah, it sure seems that way.
It's kind of incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, so Ryan, how do you think it's going to end there? I mean, do you think they're going to give them the Waco treatment, or?
I don't know. I really don't know. I don't know how they're going to try to spin this one, because I don't know where it came from. I don't know how it even started, for one. And then who's going to take care of it? The feds? Probably not. the state, I think it's just they're going to let it fail, and then they're going to try to frame it a certain way and say, look, this is what happens when you have a free, voluntary society. This is why you need government. Because Chaz didn't work.
Exactly, and they're gonna attach it to like any libertarian causes, like maybe out in Vermont, New Hampshire, where they actually want to are working peacefully to achieve a voluntary society. But instead, the thing that sucks is nobody's going to get arrested over what's happening in terms of property damage to private businesses in Chaz.
Yeah.
Andy No, who reports on violence and vandalism in Portland, Oregon with Antifa, he's retweeting a lot of videos where it's just this guy with a camera, which props to him if he has a really good videography camera or photography camera, because there's a chance of it getting stolen in Chaz. He pans out, and then it shows the entire street and all of the businesses just spray painted.
Oh my God.
Just
Jeez.
all of it. Yeah, and I think there are quite a few private businesses in Chaz, like along the streets and whatnot. Like, it's not just government buildings that they're vandalizing and whatnot. It's just pictures of like these limp dicks, and then AAB abolish 12, like all over the windows everywhere, not just sparsely like it was in Minneapolis.
Wow.
So, yeah, it's it's crazy.
Did
And the
Andy
fact that
No post this?
oh yeah, that's pretty much all he posts nowadays is just the vandalism, Antifa, and all those leftist organizations that say they're anarchists are doing all the damage they're doing. And yeah, with all the cameras and surveillance nowadays, you'd think maybe the police and the mayor, instead of just saying it's a summer of love, actually focus on catching some of these dipshits, these asswipes, who vandalize these private businesses and who have to out of money.
Did they really say that? It's the summer of love?
Something like that,
Yeah, I've heard them compare it to it.
Oh my God.
And these private business owners have to expend their money cleaning up. And that's what sucks is all it takes is a few idiots.
This is all just love.
Summer of love, man. All it takes is a few idiots to spray paint your store again once you've already cleaned it up. And
then you're back to square one.
Yeah, and I think that's what the argument should be for like statues of Winston Churchill. It's like he wasn't a terrible human being, but if it's in the public square and there's no protection of the statue, well, with cancel culture nowadays, they're just going to spray paint it, and if you clean it off, they're going to spray paint it again and deface it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where it's almost better to say, like Logan and J-Rick were saying, where just give it a vote publicly. Should they go into private collection? Do you want them in the public sphere? And if the referendum, the majority votes no, then just bring them to a museum, because if it's somebody noble, like Matthias Baldwin in Philadelphia, was it? Who was an abolitionist.
Yeah, an
abolitionist who hired blacks at his manufacturing plants, mills, and shops during the antebellum period, at a time it wasn't popular, especially in the North or the South, to hire blacks or treat them well. He hired them. He had his statue defaced.
It's unbelievable.
Failure of the education system.
Exactly. They see some colonial attire in a statue. That's like the sculptors, whatever, how they made them. They just associate that with slavery.
I know.
Which was primarily and solely white people. And then they just deface them and spray them. Well, that sets a dangerous precedent. Like, are you going to spray paint Sam Adams and like Abe Lincoln? They already want to take down Boston.
Yeah. Where do you draw the line? I guess we just shouldn't have statues. I guess. We just shouldn't remember history at all. Let's just forget it. I mean, that's pretty much where we're at, because we're just defacing statues of people that have nothing to do with our message.
Yeah.
Like, what's the point of history at that point?
Yeah. They knocked down that Christopher Columbus statue, and I think Walls gave a statement where he said he doesn't agree with it being knocked down, but he understands their rage or something like that.
How bored do you have to be? How bored do you have to be to knock down the statue of a guy who discovered the New World and actually set up the first trading post in the New World. So how boring to be offended by somebody who did some messed up things, but also contributed some good things, like half a millennium ago or whatever, or centuries ago. Like, do you think you're really accomplishing a lot? Because Columbus as a historical figure, is very misunderstood.
Yep.
Very misunderstood. And the fact that they're not going to apply that logic across the board, like somebody did something bad in history, so we're going to fucking deface them or vandalize them in their statues. It's like, okay, well, do you understand that like most Native American tribes, or many Native American tribes, like stole land from each other, and the Comanche were one of the largest slave trading groups after the war ended. So if somebody wants to put up a statue of a Comanche chief, are you gonna tear that down too? Are you gonna
No.
Well, it's like people keep saying that the Lakota's ancestral lands are in the Black Hills, but a quick Google search reveals that they didn't move into the area until the 18th century, and they drove out and/or exterminated the tribes that were already there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, that's kind of Dinesh D'Souza's point too, because in one of his movies, he critiques Howard Zinn's, History of the United States, where he says, if people want slavery reparations, I mean, are we going to go back to the Native Americans? Where are we going to really try to figure out how much land each tribe had at a certain point in time and repatriate lands? Because that would be far too complex. Right. Because in Howard, that's what's missing when he talks about Columbus being an asshole and, the conquistadors and European settlers who took over Indian lands. It's just like, well, they were better at it. So the fact that we're not going to have a historical perspective when it comes to taking down statues, and we're not going to have any sense of consistency from the left, of course. I mean, that just makes it so much worse.
Yep. I think this just shows that cancel culture has no bounds as far as how far back in time it's willing to go. You could be Christopher Columbus. You're canceled.
Yep.
It's over. Like,
and what are they going to do? Are they going to go to Spain and Portugal and burn all of the artifacts surrounding Columbus and some of the ports he sailed at? Maybe some artifacts, his diaries, and just torch it, memory hole everything.
I can see that happening.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, I don't doubt it. They'll burn down the entire building to make it happen.
Yep, and I think crazy. Jefferson's next, which sucks because Jefferson accomplished a lot. He was pretty much a Renaissance man in the colonial era. He contributed a lot when it came to economics, a little bit of astronomy, naturalism, philosophy, language, currency, writing, and just so many fields. And there's such rich history. That's why I miss Washington, D.C. I went there like in 2002, 2003, and there's just so much history to be learned. And the fact that there's a growing number of people who want to not just vandalize, deface, and erase it physically, but also digitally, with a digitization of information, they want to change it, or they want to memory hole it.
Yeah. It's kind of crazy how 1984 just seems to be popping up more and more. Before when I saw it, I was like, oh yeah, the boxes in everybody's room feeding everybody information. Call it the radio, the television, or whatever it is. But now it's really like you can see how the media, the press, they really they do manufacture stories, or they'll manipulate them so heavily where you don't even know what's real anymore because they won't even issue a retraction. Like, so how many people can see a story and just believe it because they didn't even get to hear like, oh yeah, that was actually fake news. So it's fucked up, dude. And then they're just going to start burning books, taking things out. Then history is going to be whatever people can remember and pass on, but it's not going to be mainstream history, I guess, is what it'll be. It'll be that underground black market history that people talk about.
Yeah.
That's what's probably going to turn into. And you already hear Walls. He was talking about just the credentials didn't matter as far as who was teaching kids, because he's like, I shouldn't be teaching kids that don't look like me. You know, black kids should learn from somebody that looks like them. So basically, black kids need to learn from black people, and white kids need to learn from white people. And basically, we'll just match everybody up on skin tone. And that's,
Isn't that discrimination? Isn't that segregation?
that's what I was getting out of it. I was just like, how backwards is that?
Yeah.
Like, and that's what he was saying when he was up here in Duluth. He was giving some speech in front of a memorial where some people were lynched 100 years ago or so.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, that's what he said. He literally said, you know, black people should teach black people. I mean, I'm fine with that, obviously, but it's just like, what about credentials? Does that not matter? Credentials aren't going to be a thing.
Yeah. He's
No.
upping it from credentialism to credentialism plus skin tone. Where, I mean, just creating this narrative that you can't learn history from like white people because they haven't experienced oppression that maybe blacks had a century and a half ago.
Well, because we don't understand because we all benefited from it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Which I don't even know what my benefit is. I really don't. Like, my family came over here not that long ago. So I don't even know what I had to do with anything that happened, at least in the U.S.
Yeah. My family came here in the 1890s, 1900s, something like that.
Yeah.
So long after the Civil War ended.
Right. Yeah, same with my family. It was right around that time frame too. It wasn't my grandpa's dad, but his grandpa. My grandpa's grandpa. That's when we came over.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you hear Walls talking about how we need to confront our racist past in this state, and he uses that incident to make it sound like Minnesota was a state just as racist as, you know, Mississippi or Alabama during the antebellum period. And that's what he kind of ties it to social justice and us being forced to do something and confront our past. It's like, yes, we know, like, racism is on the fringe of society.
Yep.
Right? Well, there are many racists, like Ryan and I talked about a few episodes ago. There aren't many racists, and if there are, they're shamed on social media.
It's not a mainstream thing. Yeah. Like I knew somebody that was just vocally racist and everybody hated him.
Yeah.
Like,
exactly.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, I've known actual racists too, and contrary to what liberal media will tell you, they do not speak in code or dog whistles. They're pretty vocal about what they believe.
Yep.
Exactly.
Yeah, they're pretty straightforward.
Yeah, and it's just, I hate hearing like Walls Frey, you know, talk about we feel their pain after 400 years of, you know, oppression and subjugation.
Yeah.
And it's so ridiculous because they don't actually want to have a conversation about the history.
Right.
No.
If they wanted to at least have a conversation about the history of it, that would be better and more constructive, but the times have changed. Like, it's not like it is during the Jim Crow era, socially, especially. You know, there aren't white people pushing blacks who try to go into a restaurant that recently got integrated or something or desegregated. You know, there aren't black people just casually getting hosed down with actual hoses and stuff against a brick alley wall and crowds gathering and like laughing and watching and shit.
Right.
There aren't separate water fountains. And so I think as humanity and mankind, as we become like really more progressive, not in a leftist sense, but socially like progressive, liberal, what have you, and racism even goes more to the fringes of society, it's the more difficult it's going to be to tie any narrative they have to the oppression and subjugation of blacks in a state of Minnesota.
Yeah, and what you're saying, or what I'm getting out of it, is basically we need to take responsibility for the actions of our ancestors. And I don't understand that, because
Neither
like
do
we've
I.
been saying, where do we draw the line with something like that? Like how far are we supposed to go back with our lines, our genealogy here? I just don't. We could trace it back to Genghis Khan and shit like that. You know, how far back do the reparations need to go, and who's going to get what amount of money? Who's going to get what land? It's just madness. And I think having our political leaders driving that and keeping that narrative going is not doing anybody any favors. Because now what do we do? Because now they're basically admitting that we need to do something about it. And if something doesn't happen, it's just going to be more chaos.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I don't know what Walls expects any of us to do. Is Minnesota all of a sudden just going to have a fund based on skin type? Are we going to... Everybody gets it's going to be universal basic income. Every black person gets $1,000 and every Native American gets, I guess, the same amount because of equality.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know. How do you make up for it? Just cash
Carl.
money.
Yeah, just give us cash for sure.
Well, when Walsh was in Duluth, didn't he say there was like a straight line from the Duluth lynchings to George Floyd's death, or something like that?
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
There's a direct line, and if we can't see that, then we're never going to solve this. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I seem to remember reading something about that a couple of days ago.
Yeah. Yeah, he mentioned that. That was part of the piece that I caught. I didn't watch the entire thing, but it's hard to listen to him because he says a lot of shit like that. And he just
it was.
He's so hard at putting a sentence. It's so hard for him to put a sentence together as I'm fucking up my own fucking sentence. But he goes on, he just says all these emotional statements and just kind of tries to string them together, and then people just yes, I can relate to that. It's like, what the fuck did he just say?
Yeah.
If that happens all the time with these politicians, it's like you don't even like if it's not scripted, written out for them, so they could just read it off a teleprompter. They're awful because they know if they say something wrong, they're going to get scrutinized heavily. So they can't say how they truly feel about shit. So they need to make sure that they say all the feel good things that they need to say, and just get it out quick.
Mm-hmm.
And they just stumble through all the words. They get it out. And then I'm sure they go off camera and they're just like, God, I fucking hate this shit.
Yeah. For sure.
You don't get to know how they really feel about it.
Yeah. And he gets tossed softball questions from leaders in the black community about criminal justice reform. And he just, like you were saying, he just says, one Minnesota, we're strong, we're going to get through this. Instead of just saying, hey, maybe we should take a look at qualified immunity. Things that pretty much, I think, or at least a majority is screaming about right now is ending qualified immunity for police officers so they can be liable to be sued for their actions if they do mess up.
Yeah.
And he doesn't say that. He just like politically panders.
Right.
And on top of that, he tries drive he tries to drive the narrative as primarily racist when it comes to, or only racist when it comes to these police killings, when in reality it's statist and possibly classist as well. When it comes to, the murder of George Floyd, Duncan Lemp, Breonna Taylor, what have you.
Yeah.
And he doesn't even, it's like he's pandering to the progressive base, but he's just saying bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
But there'd be real progress made when it comes to, like, if he wanted to reform them or something, or try to, like, maybe focus on de-escalation training, but he says nothing about it, which is, to me, shocking because it's actually politically advantageous to him to address these issues.
Yeah, he could actually get a strong following from people that are, leading left, right, all over the place, because I think a lot of people would like to see something change as far as the immunity goes.
Exactly. And it just, he's almost, when he's speaking and when he's tweeting, it's almost worse than Governor Dayton, and Governor Dayton was fucked up on psychotropic medication. Our lieutenant governor, Teresa something, I think, she had a degree in psychology, I think, from Duluth, but she was his psychologist, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, yeah.
lieutenant governor
Wait, she was Walt's psychologist?
I think so. That's what a few people.
I
Yeah.
have to
Did
look
not
that
know
one
that.
up. Yeah, I have no idea.
Oh, it's just wild. But he's not like you were saying, Ryan. It's just he doesn't offer any concrete solutions. Says nothing about looting, rioting, or even commenting on the insurance fucking circus that's going to be played out in the courts in a few weeks. What have you?
I still want to know, how the fuck do we have Keith Ellison still as a prominent political figure? Like, through all the shit that
I know.
he's gone through, and now he's just the attorney general. Like, I thought that guy was gone. I'm still amazed. And then his son is on the city council as well. Both of them
That's
being
wild.
public Antifa supporters. What?
Yeah.
I
I
don't know.
remember Ellison tweeted that picture of himself holding like the anti-fascist handbook, saying this is the book that would scare Trump or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, just
And then he wants you to ignore that.
I think that was while he was still working for the DNC in Washington
Yep.
too.
Yep. And that's where I had first heard about him, was when he posted that, actually. So I don't know a whole lot about him, but the little bit that I do know and the few things that I have seen him say, I'm not a fan of the guy. I don't know how do these people get elected?
I don't know.
He used to be a congressman from what's now Elon Omar's district.
Ah.
Yeah, and he refuses to denounce Louis Farrakhan. That's tough. For him. And
Yeah.
Louis Farrakhan has said some really messed up things.
Yep.
Yeah.
And like, if either of you or any one of my friends said some of the things that Farrakhan said publicly, even if they didn't have half the spotlight or soapbox that he has, I would probably try to distance myself from him, especially if I was in the political realm. But
Yeah.
in the leftist world and this socialist utopia, it's not a big deal.
Yeah, there were a bunch of white celebrities like Jennifer Aniston and Jessica Chastain who were like quoting Farrakhan the other day on Twitter, I think.
Oh, great.
What?
Yeah. Yeah.
What?
I think one of them referred to Farrakhan as a prominent civil rights activist or something like that, completely ignorant of his comments over the years.
Oh my god. I wonder how many of these celebrities just get fed something. They're like, all right, here's your PR stunt for today. They don't.
Sounds like a great idea.
That's what that PSA about racism felt like. They were all reading from a script.
Oh, they absolutely were. They were all
Yeah.
saying the same thing.
So cringe.
Cringe.
You gotta
So cringe.
copyrighted. You gotta play that.
Oh yeah, I'm sure I can put that on. I'll play it.
Okay.
It's obviously scripted, because for them to be saying everything one after another, because it flows together. Like, if one person was saying this entire thing, it would make sense. So it's not like they were each
right.
It would mean more if each one of them put out their own statement, and it took clips of each one of them making their own personal statements about how they felt about the situation. That would make a lot more sense. It'd be a lot more genuine. But instead, it's some person put this together. They each have a piece to say, or they each say the entire thing. They each have to read through the entire thing, and then we'll piece each one of your voices in. So we get all of these different voices saying one message, and that's very meaningful to some people if you can't look beyond how fake that is.
Yeah. And there was like a marketing team that had to coordinate everything, and there was $1,000 spent on it.
Yeah, and I think it had to have been some sort of PR group, celebrities getting out in front of this whole thing, because everybody has to say something. Every company has a message. Like, even the video games nowadays, like, pops up in my game, it just says right in the side, Black Lives Matter. And then if you click on it, you can read about all of that stuff. But it's just, they just have to put something out there. So you're going to see every celebrity, and then the celebrities that don't, what's going to happen? Cancel culture. Better believe it.
Even if they don't comment on it, they're going to throw it under the bus. But it's just going to be like during this COVID thing, how we're constantly told, wash your hands, wear a mask, stay 6 feet apart. We constantly hear it on the radio, television, everything. Well, that's going to be the way it is nowadays with racism in general. All we're going to hear about is racism is bad. And 95% of the population is going to be like, yeah, we know.
Yeah, we agree.
Why can't they have a good message like, I think, what was it, 1,400 or 1,500 athletes / celebrities signed up petitions about ending qualified or supporting bill to end qualified immunity. Like that's awesome, perfect.
Yeah, right.
Mm-hmm.
That's very detailed. It's specific. It's down to the point. It gets to the root cause of, many policing issues that we have at hand in our nation, in each state. And it's not virtue signaling.
Yep. Oh, that would make sense. Is your video frozen there, CJ?
I think it did get froze.
Yeah, it looks frozen.
Hopefully it comes back. But
maybe it's a bad connection. I can see you just fine. Am I coming through okay?
Yeah.
Okay. It must just be on his end then.
Okay. There we
Here,
go.
you guys.
Oh, there he is. Maybe.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah.
So for the next probably good, Carl. Okay. Okay. But yeah, I mean,
I can cut this part out too.
okay. I mean, for the
All
next,
right.
It's all good.
That's all we're gonna hear about is just racism is bad.
Yep.
Mhm.
That's it. Nothing else. Like that's gonna be the surface of the conversation, at least from the celebrity virtue signaling.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, I watched that celebrity PSA and burst out laughing because of how fake it was.
Oh yeah.
Oh
And
yeah.
it's like Paul from Breaking Bad. If there were an Oscar for overactor of the year, he would win it for that commercial.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Put his head down and just
Yeah.
I'm so upset. Yeah.
All the celebs. But yeah, cancel culture, it's getting to a point where it's scary. Like we talked about in the last
Yeah.
episode, is especially with
Yeah.
Patreon. And that's how they kind of took out Milo is
Yeah,
He
whatever
couldn't-
happened to him? Is he still around?
he crazy enough, the one place he hasn't been canceled on is YouTube.
Yeah.
He's just been axed.
Yeah.
Patreon, I think
Twitter, everything.
yeah, possibly a few bank accounts, obviously.
Seriously.
But that's scary because if you get canceled to the point where you can't open up a bank account or the banks don't even want to do business with you because some group or groups or a few groups threatened to boycott the entire bank just because of what one person said and that person happens to do business with them. I mean, that's pretty messed up because we shouldn't be judging people from their worst mistakes.
Yeah,
No.
I agree.
I mean, the Kevin Hart apology was the worst. He made some gay jokes like 7 to 10 years ago, which he had already apologized for multiple times, and then he was on the verge of getting canceled, and he had to do a goddamn apology tour. Where it's like, even if he did make a gay joke, so what? Like, it's comedy.
Yeah. There's only acceptable jokes,
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
There's no such thing as a
Yeah.
safe joke now. All they need to be approved. They need to be vetted by the mob.
Yep.
You can't just think like, oh, all jokes are safe. No, you gotta have. I should say there are safe jokes. They gotta get vetted. They gotta get approved. You can't just.
Yep. Like you can make
It's all censored.
You can make fun of Christians. You can make fun of Republicans and stuff. But
Yep.
anything just off limits. And there was a guy in Canada who actually got fined a few $1,000s for making a joke about, I can't remember if it was disabled people or what, but he got fined and he had to go in front of a goddamn tribunal.
Oh, I heard about that. Yeah, Guy Earl, I think his name was.
Yeah, just ridiculous.
Didn't hear about that.
I know. Cool.
Yeah, it's
Canada doesn't have a First Amendment like we do, so stuff like that's more common there.
yep.
I guess that's right.
It's pretty wild. It's pretty crazy. I mean,
Yeah.
Well, same things happen in Britain and in other Commonwealth countries too. They don't have the First Amendment, so if you say something someone doesn't approve of, you can haul before a so-called hate crimes tribunal.
yeah. Yeah, exactly. In England or the UK, especially in England, if you send out a bad tweet, you can get investigated.
I know.
I thought this was The Onion. There was a person who sent out a transphobic tweet or something, and the police went to her house and I think I'm not sure if they arrested her, but they fingerprinted her.
Wow. I've seen a video of that where, yeah, they came and they said, "Oh, you were posting stuff online." Like they actually are at your door, talking to you about what you did on the internet. That's wild.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy. And then, of course, we see what Tommy Robinson has been
crazy. Yeah.
What Tommy Robinson has been trying to say for years, in regards to like Islamic extremism and how nothing's really being done about it. And they've arrested. He got arrested for simply reporting on the grooming gangs, the Pakistani grooming gangs.
That's what.
Yeah, in Rotherham, I think it was.
Because a judge put out a gag order or something when it came to reporting live outside of the courthouse, and Tommy tried reporting it, and he was, I can't remember if he went to jail or not, but he was facing like 9 months to a year in prison for just doing journalism.
Wow. That's fucked up. I didn't realize that's what that was about. I'd heard the guy's name, but I didn't realize what had gone down with that.
Yeah, and so the police, the Met has just been fucking with them so much over the past few years, and it's ridiculous because that's the one thing liberals used to be huge on back in the 60s and 70s was free speech.
Right.
And now they're the one with the
pitchforks. Yeah, those days are long gone.
Yeah. Oh, no doubt.
Yeah. Yeah, the protests on Berkeley, that I know what you're talking about. They're big protests, and now you can't even go and have a Ben Shapiro come talk on the campus now. They're not about free speech. That's just complete 180.
Yeah, Ben Shapiro, he has to have this huge arm detail every time he goes to speak on a college campus, but especially Berkeley.
Yeah.
In Berkeley, a fire alarm, I think, and there were only a few in the audience because they didn't know how violent it was going to get. But the idea that they don't want to sit down and just have a civil conversation and try to own him in a debate. If you oppose Ben Shapiro's ideas when it comes to foreign policy or the economy, let's say, or economic policy, sit down with him or just ask him questions where he would be put in a corner ideologically.
Yeah.
Well, they don't want to sit down.
You shouldn't be physically threatened by Ben Shapiro. He seems like a pretty small guy. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. But I mean, Carl, how bad do you think cancel culture is going to get? Because they've already kind of put out the message that we're willing to go after books that have these like racist statements, and we're willing to go after companies that may have what they perceive as a like racist logo, like Land of Lakes, the Native American woman kneeling with a tray of butter or whatever.
Yeah.
Or like Aunt Jemima, Lady Anna.
Aunt Jemima's gone.
I mean, how bad do you think it's going to get, Carl?
Yeah, Uncle Ben's on the way out too. Yeah. I don't know. It seems like it's getting worse every day.
Yeah.
I mean, some schools have already banned To Kill a Mockingbird and Huckleberry Finn over certain aspects of them.
Yeah, and Heart of Darkness is probably going to be getting canceled.
Yeah. And
that's a great book.
Yeah, that's probably going to happen too.
Yeah, you could learn from it from both sides, and I just don't understand it because, even in Germany in recent years, Mein Kampf was banned. You couldn't read Mein Kampf, but it's like if there was intention behind banning Mein Kampf, like, hey, it's very painful, whatever. We don't want our children reading it and getting inspired by this material. Well, the Nazi thing to do, or the fascist thing to do, is to ban books regardless of their content. And that's what they did for the longest time.
Yeah.
And I think only in the past few years, Mein Kampf has been produced or published in Germany.
Yeah. Well, I think what happens is that it lapses into the public domain after 100 years or something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. And I think just ruining the fabric that we can't have a discussion. We can't have
And they
free
like
speech.
added scholarly notes about it too, I think.
Yeah.
Make adjustments.
Definitely.
Do you think the
But-
Redskins are going to get canceled? What about the Chiefs? Are they okay? Are they safe?
Well, the Fighting Sioux got canceled at UND, and that was pretty shitty because it was like the small band of Native Americans that wanted it canceled. It wasn't representative of the majority of Native Americans. And studies have come out where they show 8 or 9 out of 10 Native Americans either don't give a damn or don't want it banned.
Yeah.
Like when it comes to the Redskins, like the name of the team.
It's just woke culture. I mean, Monticello, we used to be the Redmen, and then we had to become the Magic.
Yep.
So
I mean, how is the name Redmond really doing any harm to
I don't know.
Native Americans? Native Americans have been through some shit. They've been through 90% of the population getting wiped out from smallpox and other diseases to which they didn't have immunity. And so if they can survive that, but they apparently, according to white people, according to white woke folk, they can't survive the name of a goddamn football team.
Yeah, they need us to step in and change this name. It's woke liberals that probably did that. I mean, I can't imagine who else did that.
Oh no, and it's crazy that those studies where they go around asking certain demographics of people whether or not like Native American team names or mascots should be canceled. Like the woke liberals have a higher rate of wanting to get them canceled than Native Americans do.
Mm-hmm.
You can't be more offended than the victim.
It's virtue signaling. I mean, they think they're doing a great thing by stating this fact, like, this is wrong. We need to enact change, and then we need to start a movement. This needs to be torn down. We need to. They think they're heroes. They do it for their own satisfaction. That's the only thing I can think of. Like, why else would you do it? Because you're not really making a difference in anything. Are you?
No.
The tearing down the statues, like, isn't it just making them feel better? Like, I don't think those statues were doing anything to anybody before. Were there people that, like, every day they walked by that statue and they're like, fuck that statue. Fuck Columbus. I hate that.
No.
Yeah, I'm so triggered by that goddamn statue. I don't know. When I hear Redmen, when I hear Redskins, when I hear Chiefs, it just makes my blood boil. I want the Redskins canceled.
Yeah, the Cleveland Indians too. Anything that resembles Native Americans, or even in a positive light, like the Atlanta Braves, maybe. Like they're gonna get canceled.
Yeah. This is a good question. Is how far does it go? Are some things acceptable? Some, because they're making money off of that branding. Think of how much money those organizations are raking in. The NFL, all the different sports teams, using these players, using their labor and just profiting off their backs. It's modern day slavery. These basketball players, it's awful.
Yeah, it's always fun tries to make that statement.
They're getting paid millions of dollars, and it's slavery. Yep. I mean, really, is that an argument? Is that a valid argument?
If they try to make the argument that it was from a taxation perspective, then absolutely, of course. But
sure,
they're not going to. They're going to say, "Oh, the owners, we signed a contract when we were of sound mind and we had a meeting of the minds with the owners or the GMs,
Right.
and we want to make this much for this amount of work over the course of this number of years, and now maybe they're better in their particular sport, and then they start to shout and say they're slaves now to their contract or their record company, let's say.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't make any sense, because that is not what slavery is at all. Slavery is a coercive aspect, and they voluntarily enter those agreements.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, would we have called it slavery if all of them signed a document agreeing to go pick cotton in the fields? Like, would it be the same thing? I don't. Nobody's forcing these basketball players to do what they're doing.
Oh, no. Not at all. Carl, do you want to comment on woke athletes signaling in the professional sports world?
Yeah. Funny, you know, LeBron James will say something about America, something happening here in America, but he's always silent on China
Yeah.
because that's where he gets most of his shoe sales.
Oh, yeah. NBA has massive deals in China.
I didn't realize how big the
I
NBA
know.
was in China.
Yeah. Well,
That's
Kobe
kinda
was,
blowing
Yeah,
my
they've
mind.
been making.
like, a decade ago, Kobe was massively popular in China, and still is. Well, I mean, before his death.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny that we can see all of what's going on with the Hong Kong protesters fighting against the Chinese state and mainland China,
Mhm.
China overreach, or the Chinese government's overreach when it comes to trying to annex them and everything. So we watch all of that on television. CNN covered it well, MSNBC, Fox News. This is before the COVID bullshit. And for LeBron James to say he's, not supporting the Hong Kong protesters, which is pretty much what he said. He didn't actually say that, but
Mhm.
by telling people that they need to educate themselves when somebody speaks out against what's going on in Hong Kong, that to me was such a corporate answer. And with
Yeah.
on him, he chose money over standing with people who are getting fucking oppressed.
Yep.
I know.
Yep.
It's
I
insane.
know.
I mean, it makes me want to go to a Timberwolves game. LeBron's there. Pay like $700 wear a sweatshirt, but under it, a black shirt with white lettering that says "Free Hong Kong," fuck LeBron, or fuck the NBA.
Yes.
And just support passing.
Yeah.
Because if you go in front of LeBron with that shirt, then and actually confront him, hypothetically, if somebody were to do this, I actually would want to do it if I could get a ticket for like 150 or 200, not if it was like $700 or $800. Like, Jesus Christ.
To get courtside. Yeah.
Yeah, because that's what they cost when LeBron comes into town, really. Like, then you would have to, up front, cameras would be there, it would be national news, and maybe he would choose the HK protesters over the multi-million-dollar deals that he and the NBA have with companies in China.
Doubt it.
You never know. It depends on how much pressure is put on him, but he speaks out for the woke crowd when it comes to these issues of racism and everything, and like Black Lives. So of course they might still back him even when he turns a blind eye to those injustices.
Sure. Like, what if your shirt said "Black Lives Matter, Free Hong Kong"? You put the two messages together. How do you say no to that?
It's a tough spot, man. Spot.
Force him to be like, I don't agree with the Hong Kong portion of it, but yes, Black Lives Matter.
Have to pick it up, yeah. Yep. I mean, and there's nothing really politically to be gained by standing with Hong Kong protesters. You're a politician.
Yeah.
Like, no narrative to push, so it's not even worth wasting time on it.
Yeah, that's not your base. They would probably vote for you, but there's no point in pandering to them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's you'd think more people would be like on the left or the social justice warriors would be like, okay, women aren't treated well in Saudi Arabia. Muslims really are treated well in China. But people don't really have rights in China. It's a surveillance state. It's a totalitarian state in many regards. And we stand in solidarity with the oppressed and subjugated.
Yep.
But try to say as, oh, well, with the drug war, it's just as bad here in America as it is. They point out the injustices here as if they're comparable to all of the, horrible, heinous things that are happening overseas.
Yeah.
That's how they try to tie it. They don't actually address those injustices.
No, they don't.
I mean, it goes like whenever we want to talk about basic rights for women, and they want to make it about America or about Western civilization, but women are doing pretty well in Western civilization, whereas in Saudi Arabia, Iran, all the Muslim majority countries in the Middle East, they're actually fucking oppressed.
Yep. Yeah, I don't understand the silence, the picking and choosing. It seems like being very selective about what they're going to speak about.
Yeah,
because I can't say it doesn't fit the narrative, but because we're talking about the athletes at this point still, right? Or are we talking about politicians not speaking up?
Well, SJWs and athletes, I guess, not speaking up on the injustices when they have a platform, or it's the right thing to do, really.
Yeah, I don't know. They're just it didn't come from their PR firm, so they're not speaking about it.
Yep.
No.
Agents, everything. Got to make sure it doesn't hurt their bottom line. And that's what we're seeing with Goodell. I mean, Goodell could have, a while back, he could have addressed the problem with, banning players or suspending players for 4 games for using weed, which is at the professional level anyways, that's the typical go-to drug of choice for black athletes. And they're getting crushed by suspensions, the ones that do test positive. Like Josh Gordon is obviously like the biggest example. Roger Goodell could have said, you know what? We're going to be lenient on like drug policy. We're going to completely abolish suspensions for using pot. We're going to do that. We're going to do fines. But it's only recently, when he was negotiating with the Players Association, that, his side of the table started, putting that into it, or putting that into the deal, putting that on the table, which it's like nothing changed from now,
it's been the off season.
Yeah, exactly. And it's so frustrating because they're virtue signaling, but it also has an impact on the players. Like, you can't really make a living. And there are many black athletes who have been screwed over by that policy, but Goodell didn't say anything. But now that culture has power over everything, now he's doing
the Floyd incident.
Yeah, now he's doing the right thing.
Yeah, I did find that interesting. He's like, the NFL, we made a mistake by not listening to Kaepernick. Like, they had to put out that statement. And it's just, why now? What, it really took all of this?
Yeah.
It took the big social movement to get it going. It just goes to show how much the mob rules everything.
Yep. And even if good things come out from like this massive movement that we're seeing, these specific calls for justice and whatnot, corporations or like execs should be doing the right thing for the sake of doing the right thing anyway.
Exactly.
Instead of catering to these SJW cancel culture mobs.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that's what's puzzling us about all this, is why aren't people just doing the right thing for the sake of doing it? It just seems to be that they need to be motivated by somebody else, something else. They can't do it because they're a decent person. They can listen to other people, see what they need to do. No, they need to have it be a big social movement. Then they'll listen.
Pretty much. It's just...
Because, he could have at any moment listened to Kaepernick, been like, you know what? You guys can kneel, whatever. whatever it was that Kaepernick wanted. I don't even know what it was that he wanted, honestly.
No, it was just this. He just doesn't even hit on things that you would expect somebody doing that to hit on, right? The issues and everything. It was like this general thing, and then he was wearing a Fidel Castro shirt.
Yeah.
And like some other stuff that just didn't make any sense and was paradoxical in terms of like justice and what he would want, because Castro and Che were like super anti-gay and they executed gays.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a good point. As Goodell could have done the right thing and said, okay, well, if you want to kneel, then you can kneel. Whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, if that was his position, what changed 3 or 4 years ago to now?
Yeah.
From to now, nothing.
Right.
It's just that you want to be popular with the cancel culture mob, and you don't want to get canceled.
Yep.
And you want to maintain your nonprofit status. I'm sure that has something to do with it.
Well, how much better could it have been for the NFL if they would have just heard out Kaepernick, said, what can we do? And then he maybe would have came up with something unrealistic, said that we can't do. Then they would have said, okay, we can do this, but we can't do that. Then there you go. They could have said, all right, we heard him out. This is what he wanted. This is what we did. We now sponsor something. The NFL is now a sponsor of blah.
Yep.
Some organization. Because I can't think of anything beyond that would have turned into. And maybe it was just some sort of thing to make Kaepernick more attractive. So because he got branding deals out of it. I mean, he worked with Nike and whoever else.
Nike, yeah.
I don't know. I can't think of what his motivations were, because it was very confusing, I guess, as far as what is your message.
Exactly.
Are you kneeling because of police brutality? Are you kneeling because you don't like gays? Because I'm, like you said, we're getting very confused by the Che shirt. It doesn't make much sense.
Yeah.
But
well, and he also spoke positively of Castro on multiple occasions too.
Yeah.
Like he claimed that Cuba had better education than we do, which no, I don't think so.
I don't think so.
Yeah, just because they have, a good system when it comes to educating doctors and picking out really good doctors that go to different countries in the world to do charitable work and whatnot. He wanted to make it look like the regime under Castro is better than what we have going on in this patriarchal, racist America, when in reality, engineers, lawyers, doctors are actually taxi cabs in Cuba, because that's one of the few private sectors in Cuba that they can make money.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, that's pretty wild, I think. And so,
yeah.
Kind of a confusing message, whereas if he would have just had a message, agree with it or disagree with it, then he could have talked to the NFL. But like you said, there wasn't much of an incentive to do that and actually make progress, because he wanted to get a lot of sponsorship deals out of it. And maybe he could have had he just sat down behind closed doors with the NFL, not put out this convoluted message that didn't really make sense,
It's just for his own benefit in the long run.
Yeah, probably.
That's what it seems to be. I don't
But
know.
hey, man, those multi-million-dollar deals, it'd be tough if someone in that position not to choose money over having a specific message that could unite everybody, or go against the grain when it comes to certain narratives. I mean, like we brought up LeBron, and I don't know.
Money talks, man.
No doubt. No doubt.
That's fucked up.
That's super messed up. God damn it. I don't know. But maybe I should. If there is a T-Wolves game and I can get a good deal on a ticket. Yeah, because you just go to jail for a day or two over trespassing.
Really? Even if you paid to be there?
Oh yeah. They'll send you to jail.
Over a free Hong Kong shirt.
Yeah, some people have gotten kicked out of games for that.
Yeah, if you storm the court or storm the field, like at a baseball game, let's say, and you just start running around and getting chased by those fat ass security guards.
Oh, okay. I see. You would go out on the court so that way everybody would see you. I see.
Definitely. Yeah, and I would want LeBron to see too, because then be like, hey man, here's my message. It's kind of fucking important. People are dying in Hong Kong. People are being kidnapped in Hong Kong and brought to, interrogation rooms and dungeons and just probably shot and tortured, kind of like Tank Man was after he made his stand. Well, so maybe pay attention. Maybe you and every other major athlete who wants to comment on Orange Man bad and Trump and all these SJW issues, maybe you can comment on that fucking SJW issue. It's a pretty big one.
Right. Yeah. They're all worried about authoritarian regimes, the U.S. authoritarian regime that we have here, but let's not worry about the Chinese Communist Party.
No.
Nothing to see there.
Which oversees 1.1 or 1.2 billion people under its territorial regime within those geographic, which I'm sure will increase.
Well, they're cracking down on Hong Kong right now, aren't they? Didn't they just pass something? I can't remember what it was.
Yeah.
They're basically trying to
I heard about something like that.
They're trying to squeeze the grip that they've got on Hong Kong, it sounds like. Try to get this under control.
Definitely. I mean, that's an revolution that's in the process of fermenting and happening.
Exactly.
Right now.
I think it's going to get a little worse. It could become a big thing, or you won't ever hear about it. That'll be the fucked up part, the scary part, is when you don't even hear about it.
Yeah. Dude, that's...
Chaos in the streets, cities burning, it'll look like Minneapolis, except worse, but you won't hear anything. No coverage, no journalists.
Yeah.
That's why it's crazy, is they're not going to let journalists there, probably, and the journalists that report on it, just like the journalists who reported on COVID-19 in the Hubei province in Wuhan.
Yeah.
They just vanished them. They took them. They stole them.
Mm-hmm.
It's a possibility. I mean, they've already been, with this whole coronavirus, not allowing journalists in. So I don't know.
Yep. They rolled to Hong Kong. That's the route they're willing to go.
Yeah.
That's how far they're willing to go to enforce their will upon what should be a sovereign populace and nation, deciding their own issues for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Oh boy.
I mean, how do you think it's going to play out besides complete and utter destruction?
I don't know. I was thinking it's going to be just 1776, but for Hong Kong, that's what it'll be.
Yeah.
Probably. They need guns. That's why ANCAPs, Boog Boys, Libertarians, you gotta figure out a way to smuggle guns into Hong Kong, but they probably blockaded Hong Kong. They probably have that on lockdown on the outside. Yeah. Because J-Rick, in March of this year, before all that shit went down in Hong Kong, I think J-Rick and I were planning to go there. I think we planned that in September or October. And then a month or a few months later, some shit really hit the fan.
Yeah.
We're fucking up protesters over there. And flights were still, I think, or they got down to 800, 850 round trip. But, I mean, I don't know. It depends on how strong the U.S. Embassy and how, American diplomats' ties are with the Chinese government, because I don't want to be a martyr. I kind of just wanted to go to Hong Kong and check things out,
Yeah. You don't want to be taken in as a hostage, used for collateral.
Yeah.
No, you wouldn't want that.
No. I mean, it's almost better to, if you're not protesting, you're not near there, or you can't smuggle guns in, reporting on what's happening in Hong Kong, have a voice on social media. Well, that's how the message gets sent, and that's how they gain momentum from the protester standpoint. That's how they gain power and gain confidence. And that's why Pakistan and Afghanistan and some other areas in the Middle East, they really crack down. They're like China. They crack down on what's happening on the internet because they realize
major censorship.
Yeah, for organization and fighting against government.
Yeah.
And it's messed up that Google does business with the Chinese government. Of course, if any company does business in China, they have to go into business with the Chinese government. The Chinese government incentivizes it with subsidies and handouts.
Yeah.
So that's why that Alex Jones talked to, who was it? Google CEO, I think, where he
Yeah.
followed them in the congressional hall, and he talked about how Google was evil and annoyed the.
It went after Sundar Pichai or whatever.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, that's him. Hmm.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Doesn't Google's partnership with the Chinese government kind of contradict their mission statement? Don't be evil.
Yeah.
Yep.
You'd think. I think they got rid of that, didn't they?
Yeah.
They can't.
Yeah, they may.
They can't follow that
Well,
anymore.
when they first started in the 90s, it was "Don't be evil."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I read a book on that. It was on the company, on the founding of it and everything, and Sergey Brin and Larry, who founded Google, and that was their motto, of course. Don't be evil. And then you see all of the censorship that's going on, and
Mhm.
the fact that Google is willing to get nice and cozy in bed with, or all these tech companies are willing to get nice and cozy in bed with the Chinese government.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty
Mhm.
disturbing, because if citizens need the internet to communicate with each other, free of government surveillance, especially warrantless surveillance, and tech companies are actively censoring them, well, then tech companies are working with the government to oppress the populace. And of course, that's probably happening in Hong Kong. I mean, Google and Facebook and all those companies are probably sharing data on protests.
Yeah, I mean,
Yep.
I'd argue that it's evil.
Very evil, yeah.
Pretty goddamn evil.
You're working with the government to suppress the populace.
Hmm.
Pretty evil.
That's some 1984 shit. And
Yeah.
all the surveillance technology is getting, it's almost increasing exponentially, with all of these, private firms and companies getting a lot of venture capital and handouts from the state as well. And doing a lot of genome testing. I'm reading Hacking Darwin by Jamie Metzl, and he's talking about how China is quickly becoming the leader when it comes to genome testing, genetic testing, to keep them in their databases, or for the Chinese government to keep in its database under the guise of, we just want to get everybody in a system to gauge their health or their health care, and kind of, possibly promote gene editing and some other stuff, which to me is ridiculous, because if it's done, especially without their consent or incentivized even, I mean, that's pretty fucked up.
That is.
Yeah.
It's pretty fucked up.
Very.
But it's the logic. It's the logical end of a communist regime in a country with a huge populace. You want to be able to gauge where everybody is at all times, and that includes, I guess, Hong Kong, because they're trying to quash any sense of rebellion or any rebellion, and increase their tax base there, because a lot of business is done in Hong Kong.
More power for the state, man.
Yep. That's all it is.
They want Taiwan back, too.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Because that's where the original government of China fled after Mao's revolution.
Oh.
I think it's still called the Republic of China in some parts. Taiwan, that is.
Yep. And it, like Richter said in our group chat, it all comes down to who has the guns. If you don't have, of course, even with a lot of media coverage, the CCP doesn't give a flying fuck. They're gonna kill whoever's in their path.
Yep.
Until a group, militia, or like obviously a huge militia, but a huge army stands in their way, says "fuck you," we're gonna fight back, and we're gonna start popping off.
Oh yeah. Well, they'll always find a way to justify what they're doing. I mean, they control everything.
Yep.
Yeah.
Definitely. All that. Yeah.
It's fucked up.
Yeah. And the education system's great over there, and they're pushing the boundaries of technology and everything, and it manifests in more government power. Because if every company is working with the state, well, the the chains, the leashes are going to get shorter on everybody, and everybody's going to be shackled, essentially. I mean, we see that with the Uyghur Muslims in Western China. 1 to 3 million of them are incarcerated for no reason.
Yeah, because they're Muslim, right?
Yeah, because of their religious beliefs. Yep.
And I see anything, just anything that the Chinese government is doing, and then the fact that it's being kind of replicated, like those models and everything, through private companies, contractors, with the AI and surveillance and everything. I just don't want it to be here, because we live here.
No.
It's wild. It's wild, dude.
TikTok is a Chinese company.
Oh, go for it.
And I think they've been flagged by the government here for their connections to the CCP.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's crazy.
And how many kids download that app and share all sorts of information?
A lot.
Yeah, it's.
Yeah, and a way they can get you too is with your data is the fingerprint logins. I'm noticing those are popping up on apps more often.
Oh yeah.
Like save your password.
I have one for my phone. Yeah.
Yeah, you can use a fingerprint login, or you can have facial recognition.
Right.
Then it becomes app data. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm always asking myself, what's the next level? Where are they going to evolve from this? Because facial recognition, fingerprinting, and then trusting corporations with your private data when that data can be exploited. I mean,
yeah, might as well be taking a blood sample at that point.
Pretty much, and it's a revolving door with the government and private corporations, and I don't know. It's just so wild. We're speaking out against it. Celebrities and athletes, not so much, which is fucking pathetic.
No.
They never will.
Hollywood has connections to China too. I mean, China finances quite a few blockbuster movies.
Oh yeah. Yep. And then Hunter Biden and Joe Biden, politically, all the groups they've started. And if you want to find out more about that, read Profiles in Corruption by Peter Schwarzer. Great book.
Yeah, I keep meaning to read that one. Yeah.
Oh, dude, it's wild. I mean, when it gets to the chapter on Joe Biden and how his relatives benefit from, or companies benefit from doing business with his relatives, especially Hunter and Devin Archer and all the groups they formed in China and abroad. It's this intricate web that is so complex. Even if you're concise like Peter Schwarzer is, you can't follow.
Yeah. That is the way it seems to go. It goes a lot deeper than you'd imagine. Makes it pretty hard to follow all the connections that end up happening.
Absolutely. All right, boys. Well, I got to head out. Carl, do you want the last word?
Well, thanks for talking to me, and I'm have to do this again sometime.
Yeah, absolutely. We gotta get all of us on.
Good having you on.
Yeah.
We gotta get that Brady.
Hopefully,
like all 6 of us.
Exactly.